Welcome to channel Qautomation. In last session we have seen about test execution phase of STLC. So we are looking at software testing life cycle. During the test execution phase, whenever there is an issue, tester logs the defect. We report the defect to the developer. So that is called as a defect logging state or defect logging phase in STLC. That is a part of test execution phase only. But let's see about what is defect logging phase in STLC. So as the name suggests, defect logging means we have to report the defect. What is the main purpose of test execution? Executing the test cases and identifying the issues. Whatever issues are identified, we should report those issues. So defect logging phase involves documenting and tracking issues or bugs found during the testing phase. So whenever we find the bugs and issues during the test execution, we should log those defects. The most important part is identifying the defect. What is defect? If we have the functional requirement, every functional requirement will have some expected outcome, and we write the test cases as per the functional requirements. And for those test cases, if the expected outcome is not matching with the functional requirement behavior, so if the outcome which is coming after executing the test cases, that should match with the expected outcome. If the actual result and expected result are not matching, then it's a defect. So these defects are identified during the test execution when the actual result deviates from the expected result. So that is the issue, and that should be easily reproducible. So the ensure that defect can be consistently reproduced. So when you follow the test step, that defect should be easily reproduced. So this involves running the same test step under similar conditions. So when we execute the same step under the similar condition, the defect will be reproduced. So all this information, what are the steps to reproduce the defect, title of the defect, if there are any screenshot or any recording, that should be attached and that should be reported to the developer. That's called as a defect reporting. So we have to log a defect in a defect tracking system. There are multiple defect tracking tools are available like Jira, Bugzilla, Mantis, etc. So these are called as a defect tracking system. So in that system we can log the defects. And what is the normal information that contains in that defect? Title and summary of a defect. What is the title and summary of defect is a brief description of the defect. So what exactly that defect is? A short description of that defect. Detailed description of the defect. That means what are the steps to reproduce? What are the different steps to produce that defect? That comes under the description of the defect. What was the actual output? So when you execute the test cases, the outcome you get, that is the actual output. And as per the functional requirement, what is the expected output? That is also there. So there are two things, actual result and expected result. Expected result is the one which is mentioned in the functional requirements, and actual result is the one which you get after executing the test case. And to test case to get passed, both these results should match. If the actual result and expected result are matching, that means the test case is passed. And if it is not matching, if the actual behavior is different than expected behavior, then that is an issue. So immediately we should take the screenshot. We should record the behavior if possible, note down the steps and log the defect. Along with that, we can also mention the severity and priority of the defect. We will see in detail. So in coming sessions, we will see all these parameters in detail as well. But currently just understand on high level. So severity indicates the impact on the system, and priority of the defect indicates urgency of that fix. So severity means how severe, how impactful that specific issue for the business. And priority means how urgently that issue should be fixed. That is called as a severity and priority. We should assign severity and priority to defect as well while logging it. On which environment that issue got reproduced. So it can be sometimes Windows specific issue, or it can be issue sometimes happening on only Mac operating system. Sometimes the issue is specific to mobile application, etc. So we should always report the detail about the environment as well. While logging the defect, we should always mention the environment as well. And what is the initial status? So that can be new or open. So when the issue is created, initially it would be in status of new or open state. Once you log this information, next step is assigning the developer. So there would be a field to assign to specific person. So we should assign that issue to the developer, responsible developer, who is going to fix that issue. Reported by. So whoever tester is reporting that issue, his name would come under reported by field. So the tester who have identified that defect will come under reported by field while logging the defect. So this is the basic detail which we should log while creating the defect. While creating the defect information, all these parameters should be logged. Defect assignment. So once you log the defect, it is assigned to appropriate developer or the development team. So developer will assess that issue. They will decide whether issue is need to be fixed priority depending on the testers has given the severity and priority, and they will implement the fix. So developer works on resolving the defect by making necessary code changes or adjustments. And once developer complete that, he will fix that issue and reassign back to the tester. So once developer has fixed that issue, as a tester, we should perform the retesting of that issue. Once the defect is fixed, we should retest the functionality to ensure that defect is completely resolved. We should always check some scenarios around that defect just to make sure that it is not impacting other areas of the software. And once that is done, so after test execution is completed, all the defects are reported by tester. All those defects are fixed by developer team depending on the priority. So first obviously P0 and P1 issues should be fixed. And once all the P0 and P1 issues are fixed, they are retested and closed, then we have to perform the defect closure and reporting activity. So after retesting, the defect is reviewed to ensure it is fixed and the issue is resolved. And then we can mark that defect as closed. So we can mark that defect as closed or resolved in the defect tracking system. And we can also put some comments or notes if any. And what is the deliverable? What is the outcome of defect logging phase? So once defect is reported, we should do a reporting as well. We should generate a report to provide insights into defect trends, testing effectiveness, and quality of the product. So how many test cases are passed? For those test cases, how many issues got resolved? How many issues got found with the test cases? So all this reporting should be done. So that is called as a defect reporting. So what is the outcome of this defect logging phase is all the defect report will be generated. So along with the test execution report, there will be a defect report as well, which will have all the defects which are logged by testers during the test execution phase. And QA lead and test manager can review those defect report as well. So this is about the defect logging phase of STLC, which is basically part of test execution phase only. So while tester is doing the test execution, whenever the test cases are passing and failing, for the failed test cases, testers will log that defect with all the information. So once the defect is identified, then testers will log the defect with information such as title of the defect, description of defect, severity and priority of defect, environment on which it is reproduced, status, and assigning to which developer. So that will be in the information of that specific defect. And there can be a different type of tool which can be used in different organizations. So there could be a Jira, there could be a Bugzilla, Mantis, etc. And after assigning that issue to the developer will fix that issue and that will be reassigned back to the tester. So tester will have to retesting of that issue to verify that that issue is completely fixed, and if it is fixed, then tester will mark that issue as closed. And once that issue get closed, all those issues we will check through our defect report. So after retesting, we can mark that issue as closed. So this is basically about defect logging in STLC.